Eyes covered with snow. Oh, by gosh, by jingle, it's time for carols and Kris Kringle. Overeating, merry greetings from relatives you don't know. Then comes that big night, giving the tree the trim. You'll hear voices by starlight, singing a Yuletide hymn. Oh, by gosh, by golly, it's time for mistletoe and holly. Fancy ties and granny's pies and folks stealing a kiss or two as they whisper Merry Christmas to you. Oh, by gosh, by golly, it's time for mistletoe and holly. Fancy ties and granny's pies and folks stealing a kiss or two as they whisper Merry Christmas to you.
I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, just like the ones I used to know, where those treetops listen and children listen to hear sleigh bells in the snow, the snow. But then I am dreaming of a white Christmas, with every Christmas card I write. May your days, may your days, may your days be merry and bright, and may all your Christmases be white.
I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, just like the ones I used to know, where the treetops glisten and the children listen to hear sleigh bells in the snow. Yeah, 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 I'm dreaming of a white
Good morning and welcome to the Community Redevelopment Agency for the City of Tampa meeting held today on December 9th, 2021. My name is Joseph Citro and I am the chair of this agency. And we will start off. Councilman Miranda is downstairs.
It's my pleasure this morning for a return of a wonderful young lady, and believe me, when I say wonderful, it's not only what she's done, but she's doing what she continues to do, and the things of her life are like a legacy, it's like a book. And it's my pleasure to introduce the chaplain of the Tampa Police Department, Delia Coleman. Delia's been the chaplain for 15 years, and she's from Selma, Alabama, and she remembers the times in Selma, how they were, and she lived through that. She walked the walk, did the bridge, helped society where we're at today. Thank God for individuals like Delia, who at a very young age saw what was happening in this country. However, besides being the chaplain, she also performs weddings, but not divorces. When she marries you, you're married for life, and things go very well. She also likes a lot, when she was much younger like myself, horseback riding and tennis. I never could play tennis because I was never good at it. But it's my pleasure to introduce to you again Delia Coleman, the chaplain of the Tampa Police Department. She's a wonderful person, and not only because I say it, because the world knows about it here. If you've been to Tampa PD, you know what she does and how she talks to you and prays for you and make sure everything is fine for you and your family. Delia.
Thank you, and good morning. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come humbly, bowing ourselves before you this morning, just thanking you for all your many blessings that you have bestowed upon us. God, we are so grateful for such a time as this, that you have brought us down to the 12th month of the year. And as we go out of 2021 into 2022, we ask you to continue to lead us, continue to guide us, and continue to provide for us. And God, we ask you to bless the meeting today, Father, that it would be what you would have it to be. Let them come together on one accord. Let there be no discord. Let them do for the betterment of our city. Father, we ask you to continue to bless our city and let it be a city that people will be glad to come to, that it will be a good report about. And Father, we thank you, Lord, for waking us up this morning and starting us on our way. Truly, down in our souls, we are just so thankful this morning because you didn't have to wake us up, but you did. And I pray my prayers this morning that the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight. O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. In Jesus' name, amen.
This to the flag, United States of America. To his vote, stand, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Miranda, Boots,
Here.
Dingfelder, Maniscalco,
Here.
Vieira, Carlson,
Here.
and Citro.
Here.
We have a physical quorum.
Thank you very much. Ms. Zellman.
Good morning, Andrea Zellman, Deputy City Attorney. Unfortunately, your regular CRA attorney, Morris Massey, had a family funeral to attend today, so I'll be with you and we'll appreciate your patience. I just wanted to remind everyone watching the meeting, this meeting of the City of Tampa Community Redevelopment Agency is being conducted with a live in-person quorum of the CRA present. However, in light of the continuing COVID-19 health standards and guidance in effect, members of the public have been encouraged and allowed to participate virtually through video or audio teleconferencing, which is referred to as Communications Media Technology, or CMT. People can watch this on Spectrum Channel 640, Frontier Channel 15. We also allow people to participate on the second floor of City Hall, and people were given the opportunity to send their written comments in prior to this meeting. And with that, I have nothing further to add. Oh, I would ask you, I'm sorry, to make a motion to adopt these rules
So moved.
in lieu of your normal rules of procedure. Thank you.
Motion has been made by Councilman Good, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. Roll call, please.
Carlson,
Yes.
Goods,
Yes.
Miranda, Vieira, Maniscalco,
Yes.
Dingfelder, and Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried with Miranda being absent at vote and Dingfelder being absent and Vieira as well.
Thank you very much. Do we have any public comment speakers on the second floor? Ms. Michelle, do we have any registered online?
We have one registered speaker.
Good morning.
Good morning.
One second, please. IT, we don't have our monitors up. Can you please get them up for us?
Morning, sir. Morning. Sharp suit you got there this morning.
Thank you. All right. Public comments. Go ahead.
Good morning. Allison Hewitt, resident of East Tampa, business owner in East Tampa, and the chairman of the Economic Development Subcommittee of East Tampa. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, CRA members. I am here today to say we are thrilled that the CAC and the Housing Committee is presenting a RFP and a program for the homeowner rehab program. And you passed this information, and you passed this in July. The residents are waiting for this to move forward, and we're asking you to encourage the staff to be able to make sure that the residents no longer have to wait for this program and to be able to push it forward through the purchasing process.
Thank you, Ms. Hewitt. Thank you for all the work that you've done on this great project.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Uhuru Uhuru means freedom in Swahili. And we say we as African people should always be thinking about our freedom. And with freedom comes a certain kind of responsibility. And that responsibility is to our economics, our political structure, social structure, and our well-being, our safety. And inside our communities, we're not safe. And we're not safe because there's no accountability. There have never been any accountability because we were brought here as slaves. They can try to make a transition. We were brought here for the benefit of capitalism and imperialism, colonialism. They can try to make the transition like we're just supposed to function in society as normal human beings. They try to tell us all kind of craziness. They talk crazy to black people. Why is that? Because they're committing a certain kind of genocide against us and think we don't understand it or we don't know about it. You understand? Gentrification is a form of genocide. All this alcohol and tobacco and bad foods and other things, incarceration, that's a form of genocide. All what they call black and black crime, which really is white induced crime, it's a form of genocide, a slow form of genocide. And what's happening is our representatives, that's throughout the world, they're not acknowledging those forms of genocide and those forms of denial. And we have to start calling for accountability. Young lady was murdered just the other day in West Tampa, another one in Columbus Court, 13-year-old boy murdered, and they want people to come out and snitch on these situations. You understand? But that's no accountability. Nobody's saying, no politician's saying they want to hold the gun manufacturers accountable. Nobody's saying that. When it comes to black people, we're supposed to be stupid. We're supposed to think a 16-year-old got a gun, and none of the city officials is responsible for that. None of the people that's involved in the enforcement and the regulation, none of them is, they just supposed to be absolved from all guilt, absolved from all crimes, absolved from all complicity. No, they have a lot of complicity in it. They have to start approaching the gun manufacturers. We as African people have to start talking about reparations and what white people owe us for 621 years, going on 622 years of exploitation. That's what we have to get the big picture, and not these small, stupid pictures about roundabouts, speed bumps, and all this other stuff. Reparations is the word. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Daniels. Do we have any other speakers on the second floor?
Mr. Chair, there are no other speakers.
Thank you very much. And do we have any registered speakers online?
Good morning, Chair. We have Michael Randolph. Michael, if you hear me, please unmute yourself. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Happy holidays. My name is Michael Randolph, and today I'm coming from 2 perspectives. First, with the West Tampa CDC, and second, as my role as CEO with the Center for Nonprofit and Community Development. With the Center for Nonprofit and Community Development, we work with organizations nationally. Those are organizations that we work with include California, Philly, Baltimore, Georgia, Arkansas, New Jersey, and Colorado, along with other states. I'm also here with the West Tampa CDC and focus on public safety as a mechanism for economic development. We're focused on 2 things, mental health and substance abuse. Here's what we know about substance abuse. In our prison today, and this is based on information from the Bureau of Prisons, 24% of people that's in prison now related to drugs, violence is 24.2%. Robbery is 23.3%. Assault, 24.1%. Aggressive assault, 26.2%. Simple assault, 23.2%. Clearly, there's a relationship between substance abuse and drugs. There's also a co-relationship between mental health. If we look at our prison system today, 64% of the people in prison today, 64 are in jail. 54% are in state prison. 45% are in federal prison. So our focus is on mental health and substance abuse as a mechanism to reduce the violence and crime in our neighborhood. On January the 29th, we will be having a public meeting to deal with public health, public safety, and smart economic development. We think we understand how to solve the egregious problem of violence in our community, and it's based on national models that we're using from around the nation. Everybody, please have a happy holiday and get ready for 2022 and a more prosperous year. Thank you for everything.
Thank you, Mr. Randolph. Ms. Van Loan, is there any changes that you would like to make to the agenda?
Good morning, CRA Chair and CRA Board members. Michelle Van Loan, Community Redevelopment Department, and good morning. We are requesting that item number 8 be postponed and rescheduled to the January 20th CRA Board. The CAC asked to table it to their January meeting pending receipt of the draft strategic action plan next week.
Motion approved. Second.
Motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Goods. Roll call vote.
Carlson.
Yes.
Goods.
Yes.
Miranda.
Yes.
Guerra. Maniscalco.
Yes.
Dingfelder. And Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried, Dingfelder being absent.
Ms. Van Loan.
Yes, sir. First up, we have Thomas Murphy, who is the CAC Chair for the Central Park CRA, and I am going to have to apologize. He sent us his PowerPoint through sharing through an Outlook, and I can't get it on my email right here, but we will make sure to forward that to you so you have his wonderful pictures that he references in his report.
Hello. So unfortunately, my PowerPoint didn't get across in time, so that kind of bites, because it was a pretty good picture show of everything that's going on in Central Park. But I do have some notes that I wanted to come down just to kind of give you all an update on what's going on down in Central Park. So we're looking forward to having a really good 2022. We had a few bumps in the road with personal attendance and getting a quorum so that we could discuss business. And also we've got a pretty small budget, so we're looking forward to brainstorming some ideas when we get a little more TIF dollars. So a big thing, since Central Park is a historic part of our town, we believe it's important to preserve its identity. One thing that comes up a lot is, for the most part, we all know the surrounding areas like Ybor City, Tampa Heights, Channelside, but few people refer to Central Park as Central Park. So it's important to maintain the identity and continue to tell the story. Unfortunately, a lot has been demolished and remains either a vacant lot or is covered by the interstate. And we hope to preserve the structures that are left. And while doing so, we also think that it's important to help beautify Nebraska and help with the majority of the litter that's out there. One thing, I took a walking tour and basically took a lot of pictures for y'all from the most northern point of our CRA all the way down through Central Park, through Tampa Park Apartments, and it actually was really cool. So maybe I can send it to an email for y'all, because for anybody that hasn't been down there recently, there's just so much development that's going on, and you almost have to be on foot to really appreciate the size of everything and to really take it all in. So one thing that I noticed was looking east across the street while you're on Nebraska, there's so many beautifully preserved buildings, and it's just a shame to think about the structures that were on the west end or the Central Park end that are now gone. So traveling south down Nebraska, one thing that I noticed too, there's still a huge homeless population down there. A lot of people taking shelter under 275. And then also something that was different from the last time that I went down there, there's a nonprofit that's down on 3rd Avenue, I believe, which is parallel to K, that is a little bit further south, or a little bit further west behind Nebraska. There's about a dozen tents that I had seen that folks were actually living in down there. So that's a little disheartening. One thing that I wanted to mention that was a benefit for Central Park is Perry Harvey Park has a lot of great murals and historical markers, but we believe that there's a lot more that can be told in the story of Central Park, perhaps like a museum, something with the photos of what it once was, all the way back to the Scrub, Central Park Village, and then what it is today. There's a couple small, I guess we would call them scrub homes, that are still down there on Scott Street that we've kind of been brainstorming some ideas around to maybe see if we can convert them into something similar to the Ybor Visitor Center or Chamber of Commerce, the small cigar roller homes, just because one of the big things of Central Park is there's not a lot of buildings or structures left, and unfortunately there's nothing we can really do about that. So if we can preserve what's there and still tell the story of what was once there and help future generations, I think that's very important. Also, we hope to bring in a lot more affordable housing with Tampa Park Apartments coming down. That's a huge portion of our CRA. So I did actually watch a couple cool videos on YouTube for Central Park. One's called Tampa Technique, and then the other one was Central Avenue Remembered. And one of the phrases that the gentleman on there had said was, you know, if Ybor can survive and if Hyde Park can stay alive, why can't Central Park, you know, have its moment as well? So, like I said, we can't bring the buildings back. We can only continue to tell the story on there. I do have a farm update from Meacham Farm as well. I apologize that I'm trying to pull this up on here just because Travis had a lot of really good things that were going on down there as well. So let me see. I apologize on there. Okay. Of course, I can't find it now with my PowerPoint, and I can't find this. So basically, there's a lot of good crops that are going down there. I kind of improv this. He had said that their EBT double points program is working really good. They're actually trying really hard to get a lot more school field trips down there so they can get the kids down there. We had discussed, you know, field trips we went on as kids where you go to like a printing press or something. They want to be able to bring the children down there to show them, you know, from seed to crop, how things are grown, and maybe teach them how to do that for themselves as well. They've got some great live bees down there for honeycombs. They have a great compost that's down there. Neighbors in the neighborhood, for a long time, there was just so much garbage and litter, have actually come down to try to clean that up and help beautify the landscaping and whatnot. So, like I said, we're looking forward to a really positive 2022. We had, like I said, a few bumps in the road, but the biggest thing with this is there's just so much So much development construction going on. That's why I said I wish I could find these pictures, because there's just so many new buildings, and also you're seeing the portion of the Tampa Park apartments that are now being demolished. So it's going to be similar to the North Boulevard housing projects. When you look at that plot of land, it's just crazy to think of what that's going to be. And I feel like our CRA needs to be ahead of the game along with the developers so that we can all work together. We're not just adhering to what they're thinking they want to do. We're also making sure that we're preserving the history of that neighborhood, and we're continuing to speak with folks that live there in the past, that live there currently, to make sure that their voices are being heard, making sure that their needs are being met.
Councilman Goods.
Is Ms. Vallone still there?
She is. I was so proud of this PowerPoint too. I felt.
Well, we'll get to see it.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Ms.
It's
Vallone,
great. I apologize. Go ahead.
I've gotten several phone calls. The gentleman mentioned about tents on K Street over there. The school, I'm going to be going meeting with the principal sometime today in reference to what's going over there. A lot of parents are calling and saying it looks horrible over there. I don't, you know, my grandkids do go there too. So, but I understand that there's a lot of homelessness going on there with a bunch of tents all over the place. People are all on that road back there. And I guess it's become kind of scary for the parents dropping those kids off. So, Ms. Vallone, if you can have somebody, I'm going to go by there, but if you can have TPD or homeless people go out there and see what is going on and what kind of remedy we can do in that zone, we'd be most appreciative. I don't know if that Boys and Girls Club building has been sold, or they still own that building or not. But my understanding, they're on the courts and all over the place. And you know, I can imagine if you're parents and you've seen that multitude of people over there with young children going to school in the morning and in the afternoon, it could be a problem. So I am going to go by there to see it, but I also want you to check with TPD, see what we're doing about that situation.
And that is St. Peter Claver, correct?
St. Peter Claver.
Yes, I've talked to Captain Owens, and he has a police officer out there during drop-off and pickup. The nonprofit will be going away as of January 1st.
Thank you for the update, sir.
So I know that for sure.
Thank you, sir.
But please, Michelle, if you'd like to go ahead and have an update. Councilman Vieira.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. And Councilman Goods had mentioned the homeless facility off K. I actually was taken there by Francesca Michelini and some other individuals maybe like 2 weeks ago, and it's you know, I got together with her and some folks from the city to try to address, you know, what's going to happen to the folks there, because like you said, there is a transfer of the property now, and we want to make sure that folks are taken care of. But yeah, very. I must confess, I had never been out there before I was taken there, and it's eye-opening. I went maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, so I'm glad you mentioned that, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you very much for your report.
Thank you so much. You guys have a good day today.
Good morning. I'm still hoping the PowerPoint may come up. With that, we will move on to our monthly report for our staff reports. And if we could pull up the PowerPoint, please. So good morning, Michelle again. On behalf of the Urban Core CRAs, we'll start with the Downtown CRA. We're very excited as we continue to see the Spring Hill Suites rise up into the air. We're up to 8 stories on this new hotel over on Franklin Street. And then we also have the 37-story tower going up at One Ashley Tower at Ashley and Bryan Drive. And they are starting to get going on that, which will really, again, change our skyline and also our profile along the Hillsborough River there. And on the top picture, you can see it illuminated in the rendering right there in front of the bridge. In Channel District, we continue with our construction projects. The first 2 phases are almost complete. We're in the home stretch, and we are up to about 25% in that last stretch as you approach the roundabout. Twig Street has begun construction. We timed and rescheduled Twig Street so that we could time the Twig Street construction with the Daniel Corp construction so that neither one of us was ripping up each other's work as we did our construction projects. And there we have the Daniel Corp building on the 2 right pictures on the side. You can see it, again, getting up to, I think are we also at 8 stories, I think Mike told me. So we're very excited about this one coming on. A lot of development still continuing in Channel District. And then we also have the Channel Club just sold. We're very excited. It shows how strong the market is in our urban core that we have seen both in Tampa Heights Riverfront and now in Channel District, these newer developments selling for record or near record numbers. For Tampa Heights Riverfront, we're also very excited about the $18 million federal RAISE grant that the city received that will help with transportation and pedestrian improvements, and this will help come up into Tampa Heights Riverfront with our transportation issues, again, as we continue to evolve into our work, live, play neighborhoods, and we combine our businesses and our commercial industries with our residential areas. And lastly, we have the project that is adding that pedestrian crossing right there at Florida Avenue and Nebraska. And lastly, in Central Park, we, you all as council, just approved the zoning on the new apartment project that will go just north of GTE. When you look at the picture on the lower right, the green grass area that is the larger part of that square in red is outside the CRA, but that notch to the right is inside the CRA. So we will benefit both from that development and also that development being right on our corner. And then Mr. Murphy was also very excited about the Central Park Village reunion, and he did attend that. And he's very excited, as you heard, about the history of Central Park and trying to document and in some form retain that history and document that history and celebrate that history. And that is a lot of where we will start to try and work in the FY22 season, starting with our workshop with the Central Park CAC next week. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions on these 4 CRAs.
Comments or questions? Councilman Carlson.
Could you give us an update on how the strategic action plan is going for Channel District, please, and when we might have that back? I know the community there had a sense of urgency a year or so ago, and so I just want to check in.
Yes, we talked about it last meeting. It's coming to you on the January 20th. The draft is being delivered to the CAC either tomorrow or early next week, and then you all will also get a copy for review. The Channel District CAC members will provide their input, we'll do some more edits, and then we will bring it for your official review for the strategic action plan. The CRP has gone through their review. We're doing their final edits so that we can bring it to you for then taking that CRP to the Planning Commission.
Councilman Dingfelder.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Michelle. So I think many of us read a little gossip about the Funland Drive-In in East Tampa, and then there was gossip that the city was buying it.
Wow, it was right down the same man. I was going to ask that when East Tampa came over.
Yeah.
So the Funland, we knew that there were several different buyers that had been approaching them. When we found out that it was on the market, we also reached out to find out what they were looking and how much, and we found out they were already under contract, and so we did know they were under contract. And this morning's article that we all read that said the employees are telling us that they've been notified it has been sold, but we know as much as you do from that article. If it has sold, it won't post yet, and neither the buyer or the seller has officially confirmed with us either, but I can confirm the city of Tampa did not buy it.
Okay. I didn't think we'd be in the dark about something that big, but thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Goods. Didn't mean to rain on your parade. So.
Oh, no, good job. Is this true?
Councilman Goods.
You know, it's disappointing, though, because that is a big piece of property. And I know a lot of people don't know that East Tampa does have an overlay. And a lot of people come to me in reference to the hospital that they didn't know about, who's owning that, what their plans are at Nebraska. But East Tampa's an overlay, and I understand that the subcommittees in East Tampa are looking at that in reference to the overlay, so people just not coming in just building what they want to build, because there is an overlay. And I know they had paid a while ago, but again, like most things in East Tampa, it's set on the shelf. So I'm hoping to see something coming back from the advisory committees in reference to when that overlay is going to be done, so people don't rush to start building, so people can understand what East Tampa needs to look like in the future, because there are requirements in East Tampa. But again, we set things on the shelf. So just for FYI, Ms. Van Loan.
And we're very excited that Kim Headland has returned to that subcommittee and will continue to lead that effort.
Any other comments or questions? Councilman Vieira.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I wanted to reference with the Central Park Village, the nice gentleman who was speaking, who's done a lot of work, et cetera, which is, I made a motion, which actually I have to amend for some verbiage issues, on using CRA funds for African-American Civil Rights Heritage Trail in affected CRA areas, and that's something that I would assume will have some significant relevancy to that. So I just wanted to address that point for a cause obviously close to my heart with regards to local history, et cetera, but that will be addressed and dealt with. Thank you, sir.
Any other comments or questions? Just a quick question, Ms. Van Loan. The Channelside Drive, I've driven down that many times now that the construction has started. When is the completion date on that, do you know?
I think we are scheduled to be fully complete. We will get into the home stretch of completion as they get fully geared up for cruise season. And I don't want to misquote, but I'll say about the fall, September-ish, but I know it is in 2022.
Thank you for segueing into my next question. Because the cruise industry is starting back up again, have you heard anything, complaints, great things, comments?
Right now, we've got a lot of people really excited as they see the landscaping come in, the widened sidewalks. That has made a big difference for the area and the community, especially when we start having more and more, until the codes change, about the scooters and the access, and as we start opening up again and the cruises come in. But we are getting very positive feedback about the aesthetics of it with the landscaping and the widened sidewalks. I think we'll get more positive comments once the construction's complete.
Great, and in my opinion, money well spent. Also, I'd like to thank Congresswoman Castor for her efforts with the raise monies, raise as in R-A-I-S-E, money coming in. Let me clarify that. Thank you, Congresswoman Castor.
Mr. Maniscalco's hair went up and came back down.
Yeah, you know something we don't know?
And I am sure that my legislative aide right now is on the phone making a phone call. All right, Ms. Van Loan, please proceed.
I'll bring up Ms. Courtney Orr to update you on Ybor.
Good morning. Courtney Orr, Ybor CRA Manager. I'm going to begin with Ybor CRA direct activities. So keeping with tradition, Ybor hosted its holiday tree lighting ceremony just before Thanksgiving. We were very happy to see the turnout. It was packed with families and many smiling children. So thank you for those who were able to participate. Staff has heeded your concerns regarding the usage of YCDC versus Ybor CRA. We accomplished quite a bit in November by switching everything from YCDC to Ybor CRA wherever appropriate, and all references on social media, the website, and on marketing materials. Listed here are topics discussed at our subcommittee meetings or CAC meeting. The community is very pleased to see, you'll see photos here of the CSX maintenance and repair work that was underway in November and now is completed. There still are cleanup efforts underway, so that's still to be completed, but the overall major project work is completed. All in all, it went pretty smoothly. The contract with Tampa Contracting was executed in November, and this month the 7th Avenue Streetscape Gateway Monument Project will be underway on the east end of 7th Avenue. So the inaugural Heart of Ybor Community Art Contest was very successful. We received 39 entries in 4 separate categories. Listed here are the individual winners, and you can view all of their work at the link shown here. The community came together to welcome Masonite International to Ybor. The new headquarters houses more than 200 employees, so we're very happy to have them in the district. Metro Inclusive Health also hosted its grand opening and open house located at the rehabilitated German American Club. That third bullet I've already mentioned, so I'm going to conclude my Ybor report at this time. Thank you.
Comments, questions? Ms. Orr, thank you very, very much. First of all, the Christmas tree lighting, what a fantastic night that was. I know Councilman Goods was there. Also with the East Ybor Gateway. I've talked with Fran Constantino, and she is elated. So thank you for making her happy.
Yes, that's always a plus.
Thank you, Ms. Orr.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Cedric.
Just to start off, just a quick update on the strategic action plan. Going through the community input process, these are things that we've been discussing with the consultant during our bi-weekly meetings, making places and activating ideas for East Tampa, and I will show you a couple of slides of the renderings that they have come up with and the residents had shared during the survey period and the community walking tours. Just things that they would like to see. Also discussed were common goals, share with the community themes and synthesis, and the overall plan itself that we've been discussing in recent weeks. Here is one of the renderings. As many of you know, there are a lot of retention areas throughout East Tampa. Here is one rendering in Eastern Heights. I affectionately refer to it as the Sam Mobley Pond area. He was the former Neighborhood Association president for Eastern Heights, and so to the right you see what's there currently and what residents would like to see moving forward. Another one is the 26th Avenue Pond and 26th Street. Currently, you see the cemetery and the pond, and then the rendering that Mr. Seckler and his folks at GAI have shared with us that will be included within the strategic action plan as an area where folks can, actively participate in recreation, as walking, community gardens, so on and so forth. A lot of subcommittee meetings, and monthly I'd like to show pictures of things that we're doing, and as it relates to Ms. Fran Tate, our new chair, recording her video message, and some of the subcommittee meetings and partnership and CAC meetings that have taken place in the month of November. 83 Degrees, which is a periodical, received a grant from the Walmart Foundation, and with that there's a partnership with USF and 83 Degrees with one of the mass communications students that are actively working on articles and talking about East Tampa and its history, needs, wants, desires, and so forth. And we had a representative from 83 Degrees speak at the last partnership meeting in November to just discuss the project. Last but not least, we have just what's next. I would highlight the East Tampa tree lighting. It was my first time participating, very good crowd, and I know several of you were in attendance, and I thought everything went fairly well, and kudos to Parks and Rec staff and everyone else that participated in the effort. Any questions?
Comments or questions? Councilman Goods.
Thank you. Morning, Mr. McCray. Morning.
Good morning, sir.
I know you're working your buns off there with the new job and trying to get it all into place. Gentlemen, I do want to tell you that we have a lot of new members on the CAC and these subcommittees, and some of these people are subject matter experts in some of these areas that have not been in the past. So I think that's a great strive for East Tampa, that people know about development, they know about construction, they know about housing, they know about a lot of different areas. My biggest concern is what I don't want to see, and I want to make it clear to staff and that board. I don't want to see a strategic action plan that is done, we paid all this money for, to go and sit on a shelf. Because that's what's happened in the past. We've spent money and it's sat on a shelf, Mr. Dingfelder. And other areas have thrived. And when I look at these pictures of downtown, Channelside, all this beautiful stuff, and I see we had a strategic action plan for East Tampa, but nothing moved. So what I'm going to ask for, and I won't make a motion today, but I want you to take it back to the organization, is that someone needs to be hired to run that strategic action plan, to make sure it gets done, the projects get done. We can't just have a plan and do nothing with it. So I want to make sure that the board knows that it may be a point in time. I'll wait and see what they bring back, but I want to make sure that we understand that that strategic action plan has to have a leader. You have subcommittees, but that plan has to have somebody who can make that plan run with development, making sure you see properties that to make sure that it runs. I see these big lavish pictures and ideas. I don't want those things to sit and nothing gets accomplished. So I'm asking that you take that back to them. You can report back to me what they're talking about, but again, I'm saying that someone has to run that plan.
Yes, sir.
How's my trees coming? That's a big thing with the community. I want to give them an update while you're here.
Yes, sir.
Tell me about the tree grant, where we're at with that, sir.
Yes, as you know, we've had ongoing tree service to residents. We're still receiving applications and phone calls. We have, I just spoke to a woman yesterday that actually had already received the service and is now applying again after checking into it. But yes, we had a meeting with the vendors that were listed. I believe we had 6 invites. I think 4 or 5 showed up. And just ultimately talking about best practices and how we will move forward. We will be pushing out more applications or people that are approved within the next couple of weeks. And we will have some more movement moving forward. There were some concerns that were brought up about payment. So we talked about that as well in the invoice process. But I'm looking forward to keeping that going and ramping up latter part of December in the new year. What about the arborist situation? Because that seems to be a key factor. The arborists, and also making sure these folks are not just taking advantage of some of our seniors saying everything is $2,500. Yes, we did have conversations as it relates to that. They do have a pay scale. Some of them have submitted those to me. So we'll be looking into that. And it's my understanding that several of the companies have arborists on staff currently. And I have had conversations with staff as it relates to potential arborists to assist in our efforts on our end as the CRA to monitor that process. So is your office going to try to handle the situation, or we're going to try to outsource so we can get this thing really moving? How are we going to handle that? Outsourcing would be great. That will take some time to get that onboarded, but at this point in time, I will be facilitating that effort. Okay, because I know it's roughly 300 to 400 people on that list, correct? Yes, sir. That is correct. I don't want you to overwhelm yourself because there's a lot of things going on. Yes, sir. You got housing. This RFP I hear about that has been submitted. The housing committee is talking about they want that to move very quickly to purchasing. Where are we at with that? Because I think that I've been talking about that Occupy Rehab till I'm blue in the face, and that needs to move. And it must not mirror what the city's doing. It's got to be to where that program is going to be able to hit the ground, start helping people in a non-subsidized way. So where are we at on that? Yes, the housing subcommittee held a meeting last week, and we had some extended deliberations, or the committee did, and I believe everyone was on the same page. It was presented to the CAC at our meeting this past Tuesday. There was some concerns about a couple of items, and that was hashed out, and it will be coming before you on the January meeting schedule. Thank you, sir. Great job. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Councilman Dickfelder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Cedric, for your presentation. First, I wanted to thank Councilman Goods in regard to the tree lighting. I remember a couple of years ago, he pushed real hard to start that tree lighting program in East Tampa, and now it's a big success, and we all had a good time there the other night. On a substantive basis, Cedric, when you took myself and Kelly on a tour last Friday of all of East Tampa, we all kind of noticed that Grant Park out there on the far east side of the city seems to be lagging behind, and I don't, just superficially, and I'm not talking about the park itself, I'm talking about the Grant Park neighborhood. And I'm just wondering, not so much to you, Cedric, but frankly to this body, what we can do to really get that area jump started. I mean, and Cedric, chime in too. Any ideas that the CAC has had or been talking about? Do we have any infrastructure plans to get started out there? Even like over in Drew Park, we started building sidewalks, and it seems like a simple thing, but once it gets going, the whole area starts sprucing up. It's like, hey, you got new sidewalks, and then somebody puts some shrubs in, and it kind of just grows on itself. So, anyway, tell me briefly what, if anything, we're looking at in Grant Park, and if not, can you bring that up to the CAC perhaps as a priority from this body?
Yes, I will gladly share that one of the areas, as I stated during the ride-along, that has some issues with aesthetics and beautification, or the lack of, is Grant Park. Have had communications with the Neighborhood Association President, Desmond Key, who has been there for quite some time. The CAC actually approved the purchase of 6 new cameras to be used for surveillance purposes as it relates to illegal dumping. As you remember, when we were going down 26, there behind the car auction along that fence line, we saw several places where people had dumped sofas and other items and furniture there. So hopefully we will be able to curb some of that once we have those cameras in place to assist in that effort. The current equipment that we have, from what Detective Williams is sharing with me, is that we can see folks moving, but we're not able to get detailed pictures where we can see tag numbers and so on and so forth. So that is one step that we will be using to try to improve the area. The other thing is just as it relates to some of the infill housing that goes on, that area is predominantly rental, and I think if we make certain improvements, folks will be encouraged to take a little bit more ownership into what they see in Grant Park proper.
Okay, so we'll look at enforcement in terms of dumping and that sort of thing. I'm hoping maybe you can talk to our consultant as well to see if he has any specific ideas, and a little bit more long-term or mid-term in terms of infrastructure improvements out there, and maybe we can target a couple of specific streets that, for sidewalks or something. I don't know, is there an elementary school in that neighborhood or anything? Or?
No, I think the biggest facility is the recreation facility. Yes, Oak Park is closer to I-4, Columbus Drive area.
Okay.
And then there are a number of a few churches in the area also.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Councilman Good.
Mr. Dingfield, to your point, I'm glad you brought that up. I've had several calls. Grant Park is a small community, and you have Reverend Johnson, who kind of handles a lot of neighborhood stuff over at the church, and then you have Desmond, and you have Reverend Johnson that's feeding everybody, doing all that stuff. And a lot of talked about the divide, because when you go about 3 or 4 streets back to the east, we stop. The city stops, and then about 4 or 5 blocks is the county. And people have talked about, why don't we kind of look at incorporating all that with the city, because people get confused of city and county with just 4 blocks left in Grant Park. And I don't know if the CEC's talked about it, but I know a few people have called me in reference to that, Mr. McCray, so we might want to look at that, because that's a challenge as well, dealing with those last 4 blocks, trying to get them up to par. And I know it's the county, but people feel they don't get enough attention, and wonder why, when you say Grant Park, why the city kind of do some things, but they get nothing in the back 4 streets. So that might be something we can look into as well, to annex the issue, to see how we can help everybody. But great comment, so thank you, sir.
Any other comments, questions?
And more tax roll too.
Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think the way the line, this opens up a whole other basket, but the way the city limit lines are drawn, there are a lot of places like that would do for adjustment. Another is Fowler Avenue, where the line is just beyond the out parcels at the mall, but doesn't include the rest of it. There's all kinds of lines like that. So at some point, we ought to bring that up as a larger issue to discuss.
Any other comments or questions?
Can I ask Ms. Zelman? Mr. Chairman?
Councilman Dingfelder.
Thanks. Andrea, we've never, well, in the last 2.5 years, I don't think we've really talked about annexation at all, but I guess that would be more of a council discussion as opposed to a CRA discussion.
Yes, I would recommend that you, that's a very good point to bring it up at council as well. I would also, having worked on a number of annexations about 20 plus years ago, I can tell you if the property owners of the property, there's voluntary and involuntary annexation under the Florida statute. So if the property owners of the property want to be annexed, it's a simpler process. It's much more involved if the city, for example, tried to annex property on its own without the cooperation of the property owners of the property that you're annexing. Both processes are somewhat involved. And obviously Hillsborough County has an interest in not seeing it happen, so that comes into play as well. But it's certainly something the legal department could look into, and if as the city council wanted to make a motion to look at some specific areas, that's certainly something that could be researched.
And my guess is that in a lot of cases like New Tampa, you probably had like 1 or 2 property owners, and it was much easier. Here, you know, you probably have 100 property owners, but I think it might be something worth looking into perhaps when we put on our council hats. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you, Mr. McCray.
Thank you.
Mr. Nunez, good morning.
Good morning to you as well, and the rest of the board members. For the public, Jesus Nino, the West Tampa and Drew Park Urban Development Manager. Thank you. In West Tampa, we have a lot of exciting and interesting stuff going on. Recently, we put up a few more cameras, one on Fremont and Main Street, then 2 at Fremont Linear Park, and I think a few on Union. Eventually, we'll put up a few more down Main Street towards Rome. We're continuing to work with a consulting company, Pond & Company. They're an architecture, engineering, and planning firm to do a parking study for the CRA area. That was one of the recommendations from the Main Street corridor study. So once we complete that study, then we can move forward with the implementation of that Main Street corridor to revitalize it. We're continuing to work with park staff very intimately to improve Salsinas and Ray Park and Fremont Park and maybe MLK Park at a later date. The alleyways cleanups, they continue. We just completed basically 60 block alleys, and we're about to go out there and bid out a few more alleys, I think about 20 more alleys. So that process is usually very quick now, since we kind of got the hang of how to bid the process out, at least I have, for alleyways. The Main Street Clean team continues to do a pretty good job. They meet 3 times a week. They go Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We might change them over to Saturdays, but right now it's just Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. It's a temporary team. We've renewed our contract twice now, and working with the CAC, hopefully we can come up with an RFP to have them year-round and also to expand the geographic area of where they're cleaning. The mobile hotspot outreach unit, they've been out there to the Main Street area now 3 times. It's basically composed of not-for-profits, Metropolitan Ministries, Tampa Hillsborough Homeless Initiative, Crisis Center, and a few other nonprofits. The last time, I think was a week ago, they went out there and they engaged with 10 individuals, and hopefully some of those individuals take up some of the services that were offered to them. That concludes West Tampa for now.
Comments, questions? Councilman Dingfelder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, sir. On that parking issue on Main Street, I'm glad you have a consultant and an expert. I know a couple of months ago, we purchased that parcel there on Main Street from Mr. Redner. I think he sort of had a park or a pseudo park there. Is that a parcel that we're possibly looking at as a potential parking area, or?
No, it hasn't closed just yet. We're hoping to close at the end of this month. We call that Freedom Park, and one of the intent when we purchased it was to keep it as a park. So once we close, and we'll hopefully make some improvements to it. Also, Mr. Redner indicated that he would like to keep it as a park as one of the conditions, verbally, not in any kind of contractual conditions.
I wasn't aware of that. I was just thinking, since we have Salsinas Park so close by, and if there's a parking shortage, then that could be an area to look at. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Thank you, Mr. Nunez. You're going on to Drew Park now.
Thank you. Drew Park, the last meeting we met at District 1 headquarters. I think that was this Tuesday, so it's pretty exciting. We actually got to meet. We've been having a little difficulty. It was a quorum, but we just added Dr. Nihas from HCC. She's the Del Mabry campus president, so we had a quorum, plus we have other individuals that are interested now starting to submit applications, so that's very exciting. So at the last meeting, we started making a lot of motions, or at least the CAC did, so we're moving forward with working with parks so we can reactivate or activate more. The Tampa Bay Linear Park right now is just a passive park. As you see up there, it's just mostly grass, sidewalk, and a few benches. So hopefully we work with them closely and we get it activated as much as possible. There's a lot of impediments as far as safety concerns because of the right-of-way. They're right beside it. So we'll work with them. In addition, we're going to hopefully improve the roundabout there on Lois and Tampa Bay Boulevard. Then we're also working with Mobility to do basically a little series of micro-mobility improvements throughout Drew Park. Just fixing up some of the signs, just finding out other areas that we can implement safety programs. As far as Lois and Grady, we're also working with Parks and Rec staff and Mobility. We're going to do a landscape audit of Grady and Lois just to see what the conditions are of all the landscaping that was installed a few years ago, and to see what worked and what didn't work. As far as there are certain areas that I was out there on Lois and I can just see the big trucks, they cannot make the turns, like on Alva and Lois, so we're going to look at those intersections. We're working with PD to see if we can come up with a few community policing projects, and hopefully we can implement those within the next few months. And the facade grant is still pretty popular out in Drew Park. That concludes.
Comments or questions? Mr. Nunez, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, I missed one item for East Tampa. I don't know if Mr. McCray is still here or not.
Yes, he is.
Mr. McCray.
Thank you for staying, sir. As you know, I have a meeting scheduled with Gene Duncan and Vic Bide in reference to the scooter issue in East Tampa.
Yes, sir.
I think we had a brief discussion on that. I'll make sure you get a memo on that date and meeting. But, General, we have a scooter issue in East Tampa. Apparently, somehow the devices are being hacked. Young people are driving in front of cars. I've had State Representative Hart, several other community leaders talk about the scooters in the nighttime hours. Not looking to take anything away, but we need to find a plan about the scooters because it's now become a problem versus a solution for transportation. So I'll make sure Ms. Debbie gets you the memo on that meeting, because I think that's important that you be there in reference to the situation in East Tampa with these scooters. Thank you.
Thank you.
I saw scooters on Bay Shore the other day, on the Bay Shore sidewalk. They weren't supposed to be there.
I was hoping that we had, my phone has the PowerPoint, but the Outlook on our computer won't pull up the PowerPoint. So we will get that to you. I was holding on to Mr. Murphy, hoping we get this on. It showed up on all our phone devices, but it's just not showing up on the computer. So give me 1 second to release Mr. Murphy, and then we can move on to our staff reports for item 3 and 4. In closing out our monthly staff report, I do want to just update you a little bit on department items. Yesterday was an incredible day. As director, I got to announce Brenda Thrower for her 25-year pin for service with the city. Yes. And one of the exciting things was, as we're listening to the employees that were here 20, 25, 30, all the way up to 40 and 45 years, they talked about the different departments they worked for. And when you meet Brenda, and anyone who knows Brenda, which is pretty much almost everyone, Brenda has spent her entire 25 years in Ybor. She is someone who, as an employee and a worker and as a person, is so dedicated and so fully involved, invested in the community and the improvements there. And it has just been such an honor to be able to work side by side with her over these past 14 years, and then to be able to be on stage with her for this recognition yesterday. So I just wanted to give her that shout out. Additionally, last month I told you about our hiring updates. As of tomorrow morning, we will have finished all the first round interviews for the downtown urban core CRAs. And by tomorrow afternoon, we will be extending invitations for on-site tours for the top finalists for that position. And again, as I mentioned, to be able to make an offer before the holidays and then have them on board by the end of January. We are in the process of onboarding through the HR process the 2 economic development specialist staff positions for East Tampa, and the other 2 positions are still on schedule to be filled by the end of January. So hopefully by the time we get to Valentine's Day or January 31st, we will be fully staffed and ready to go. And you will also be getting a lot of the documents to review. We talked about the RFP. You will be getting that before the January 20th. So we'll be sending you that East Tampa owner-occupied RFP for your review probably in the next week. So you will be getting a lot of documents coming up that will be ready to go and hit the ground running January 1st.
Councilman Goods.
Ms. Malone, I'm concerned about the hiring process. We talked about the communication person a year ago. We talked about some of these people. We just can't find qualified people. Is it the process? What is it? Because these are the questions I get from constituents and from your boards, that what's taking long with these processes? I'm just baffled.
The communications person, that one's on me. The other ones we advertised for filling East Tampa. The other ones have been going great where you have an existing position. The other ones were newly created position, and that took a little bit more work on our side to get geared up with HR to create those positions.
So now we're saying we're hopeful by the end of January, all these positions will be filled, and I guess you're then going to work on your assistant position then?
That's included in that, yes. We will be everything will be fully filled by the end of January, yes.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Fenlon? Excuse me, Councilman Carlson.
If I could, the economic development positions you're hiring, I know you have a broader vision of economic development, but so many people in our community define economic development as either real estate development or subsidizing out-of-state companies to move in. And so could you just please make sure that we get people that, like you and Cedric and others, who understand the fuller definition of economic development, so we can really help build a robust community instead of just pushing everybody out and selling land?
Our focus is more project-based with that background, so that we have employees that can take any assignment and any project that the community or the CRA board, and so we're not hiring based on philosophy, but their ability to carry through and develop the projects that we will have coming out of our strategic action plan, that come out of our subcommittees and our CAC, and that come out of our CRA board priorities.
Any other comments, questions? Ms. Van Loan.
Okay, moving on to item 3. At the October meeting, you had a motion, and let me pull up the PowerPoint. There we go. We had a motion by Councilman Goods and Carlson that staff be requested to come back today with a report for proposal regarding standardizing the process of selecting both the Ybor CRA and the East Tampa CAC members in those 2 respective CRAs. And so I'm here today to talk about that. Your current policy, Section 3, on your CRA Board Advisory Committee policy sets out how our CACs will operate and how they are selected and how those committees are composed of members. On Section 3, it states that the East Tampa and Ybor City CRAs will have as their CACs existing community organizations, the East Tampa Community Revitalization Partnership, or the ETCRP, and then in Ybor, YCDC Inc. And as part of that, the policy also says that you will have a CAC that will be representative of the community at large. So with that, I'm starting with Ybor. A little bit of background. I started on this discussion in October, and part of a lot of these issues that have come up in recent months is what is YCDC versus YCDC Inc. So YCDC, as the Ybor City Development Corporation, this has been the title of the Ybor CRA office and Ybor CRA staff for more than 20 years. This title existed for our staff and our CRA office prior to YCDC Inc. being created as a nonprofit, and before we had a CRA department. So the original Ybor staff was part of a larger grouping, and they were co-located with other nonprofits at that time, the BBIF and the Hispanic Business Support Systems, that were all located at the German American Club back then. And so their name was reflective of the work that they were doing and the environment and the co-workers that they had been with at that time. Subsequently, YCDC as a nonprofit was established, and it was partnered with then the Ybor CRA office to assist with administering sponsorship grants, which back then with our financial systems was much more difficult to process these smaller reimbursement grants for the sponsorships that we were doing through the Ybor CRA at that time. The Ybor staff was also actively involved in the Sister Cities projects and other small fundraising and community support initiatives that again were more suited and easier to administer in a lot of these reimbursement type activities than through our city system. Then in 2008 and 2009, the CRA board, as we brought more and more CACs on, we adopted a CAC policy, and at that point they incorporated the YCDC Inc. as the board membership of the Ybor CRA CAC. We do recognize this has created confusion over time as new businesses, residents, administration, and our elected officials change. The distinction between the CRA staff, YCDC, and the Inc. nonprofit has become very blurred. The references and documentation and titles have been inconsistent, and indicative of that is when you look at the policy that was written and adopted in 2009, it uses YCDC, not YCDC Inc. And so as YCDC was used at that time, this was saying technically our staff was going to represent as the CAC. So we definitely agree that there is an issue with the terms of YCDC for our staff, especially having the same name as a nonprofit that is co-located. So to remedy this, our CRA office and staff in Ybor has been diligently working to rebrand themselves And again, after 20 years, this will take them a little bit of time not to automatically refer to themselves as YCDC, but they are now rebranding as the Ybor CRA office and the CRA staff, consistent with the other CRA districts. January 2021, we started being much more clearly defined in our meeting notices, separating those meeting notices, the format of both the notices and the meetings themselves, our letterhead, our emails, our website is the last part because we're updating all of our website, but some of those references are starting to be changed. Newsletters and flash, you'll notice in the latest newsletter, and our signage and logos. So the Ybor staff has been working to change that reference to themselves and anything that is part of the CRA from YCDC to the Ybor CRA office and Ybor CRA staff. Regarding the question about should the CRA board want to standardize the selection of the Ybor CAC, the process that would need to be followed should you go down that path is the CRA board would need to amend their CRA board CAC policy. So the section I included at the beginning, section 3, the CRA board would need to motion to remove the reference to YCDC Inc. board as the membership of the Ybor CAC. And then the CRA board would work to establish what the CAC membership for their new CAC would look like, how many members, are you going to have categories, ex officios, designated groups, and we would go through that process with the CRA board so that you have it for future reference. That is the current categories and ex officios that are in the current CAC makeup as defined in the YCDC Inc. bylaws and then mirrored in our CRA board CAC policy matrix. So should the CRA board decide to separate the designation of the nonprofit board from the Ybor CAC membership, we would have to pursue this amendment policy and process. We would establish a transition process that again is in your CAC policy to have staggered terms for a new CAC. We would open the application process and then we would bring those applicants to the CRA board for official appointment as we do with the other CACs. The YCDC Inc. board then would be requested to update their bylaws to reflect any policy changes that are referencing that interaction and the CAC board membership. Lastly, if you do pursue that change, we do have a relationship with YCDC Inc. itself. When YCDC Inc. was established, there was a formal written agreement between the CRA board and the Inc. for support by the Ybor CRA staff for their organization. The written agreement expired, but the partnership continued beyond that expiration date, but that was how it was set up originally when they were established. To that end, our CRA staff support the Inc. in the following ways that, again, I detailed in October. It is the physical address at our office for the nonprofit. Our CRA manager is the designated agent for the Inc., and they act as treasurer. Again, treasurer is for doing the treasury reports. Our staff do not sign their checks. It is the actual officials of the board Inc. We are the primary contact for the nonprofit with the public. Our staff host, notice, and provide any follow-up to their meetings, logistics, and minutes. What that comes down to is about 10 minutes for one meeting a month that occurs just before the CAC meeting. So they convene as the Inc. board. Courtney, Ms. Orr, gives her financial report for the Inc. They adjourn that meeting, and then they convene the CAC meeting. We do, through our staff, manage the paver program that is the fundraiser. It is one of the fundraisers for the Inc., and that is the paver program where you can get pavers engraved and installed on 7th Avenue. The Inc. is also the pass-through for several of our CRA special event grants. Again, I talked about this in October. We do not pay any fees, and there is no revenue that goes to the YCDC as acting on our behalf to be able to do that pass-through. We write a check to the YCDC for the exact amount of the grant, and then the YCDC cuts the checks to the grant recipients, as a reimbursement basis. And then they also have the other small community fundraising. Anyone who attended the Christmas party last night in past years, as you know, our CRAs do not pay for food or any of those type of activities. And so any gap from donations from the local community towards these celebrations are paid for out of the Inc. budget. There is a $500 Cigars for Soldier program that they do every year, and Ybor gets a lot of very positive press off of that. The Inc. also pays for the water cooler as the ambassadors and community people come into that offices, and again, flowers. And some one time, every few years, we will get someone who comes in for a one-time grant request. It is almost always by other nonprofits, the Historicals, the Centro Historianos, and so forth. And then that also comes out of the Inc. budget. So with that, I will ask, do you want me to go into East Tampa, or would you like to discuss Ybor and then go into East Tampa?
Discussions.
There's a lot going on there, boy, I tell you. What East Tampa?
Let's go ahead and go to East Tampa, please.
Okay, if we can bring the PowerPoint back up. So with East Tampa is a little bit more complicated because of our documentation. So we have multiple documents that refer to the East Tampa Community Redevelopment Partnership, the ETCRP, their governing board, as either the CAC members for our CRA or to be involved in the East Tampa CAC processes, such as development and review of our annual budget. So if you made changes to the selection process or membership of the East Tampa CRA CAC, we would need to, again, adjust the CRA Board CAC policy, as I just outlined for Ybor. We would also have to update the East Tampa Community Redevelopment Plan, our CRP, and then we would also work with the partnership to update their bylaws. Our attorney does recommend that all three documents should be amended to reflect and align with any changes that the CRA Board should make to their CAC policy. With East Tampa, this is in the past year the fourth time that we have had this as a topic of discussion, and it has taken sort of two tacks. On the one hand, there has been the discussion about the election and East Tampa being very large, and should the selection of CAC members be handled as the others through the CRA process or through the election through the partnership. So one option that has been brought up that has been part of the other motions is the selection of the CACs. Should you change the selection process, again, just like we just discussed with Ybor, you would then set what that composition of that CAC would be. We've also had discussions in the past year only on composition. Not that we need to change the selection, but what is the membership look like? And so those would be slightly different processes depending on which action, if any, the CRA board would choose to take. So one is about the selecting the CAC. The other one is if the goal is to attain a more inclusive and representative group, per your policy that says that each CAC will have a membership that is representative of all stakeholder groups. So with that, or you could come up with a hybrid, but the two obvious options based on, if I could have the PowerPoint back again. The two options are changing the selection per your policy or amending the membership matrix, which is again the composition, and that is the attachment to your CAC policy. If you choose to change the selection process away from the partnership election, you would have to change your community redevelopment plan. So we would have to go through the plan, clean up the language to change any references to the partnership participating or being designated as the CAC membership. And so that would follow the process we've just gone through with Tampa Heights. The CRA board would adopt a resolution referring that proposed amendment to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission would go through their review. Once they approve it, it comes back to you to refer to City Council. City Council holds the public hearing, and then we go to adoption by City Council. Lastly, whether you do A or B, it will affect the partnership bylaws, and we would then work with the partnership to amend their bylaws to be in alignment, again, with the CAC changes that you make as you move forward. And they would follow their bylaws amendment process. Lastly, East Tampa, just as I discussed in Ybor, it has been from the very beginning when the CRA staff was established that we would continue to support the ETCRP organization in hosting the meeting, noticing the meetings. We host them at Reagan and our city facilities. We are the point of contact for the ETCRP. We do the minutes, and we would continue that unless otherwise directed by the CRA board.
Councilman Goods. I'm sorry, Ms. Pamela, you finished?
This is the last slide, so this is just for, as I'm pointing out, there's a difference between selection composition, and you can see as the last page of your policy, the CRA board has in their policy how many members, and then are you making designated either ex officio members for organizations within your CRA or defining categories of membership. And with that, yes, I am done.
Thank you, Ms. Pamela. Councilman Goods.
Do you see how confusing that is? I'm confused. I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, maybe back in the day when you were just starting out, the organization has grown. It's confusing. I'm totally confused of it all because now you have a CAC, you have a partnership, and then my understanding is, hearing from people, is that the CAC, some say take recommendations, but they don't have committees. Then you have the CTRP, who's your committee, but yet they make some it's confusing. It's totally confusing because if we're the CAC should have those committees, and those committees should be working to bring recommendations to that CAC because they're working for the community. But now I got this other organization who's it's confusing to me, gentlemen. I'm sorry. I just think it's time to have a standard, but I'm just saying it is totally confusing. It is confusing to the public of who's actually running the show.
Okay. Just to clarify, sorry to interrupt you, Councilman Goods. Just to clarify, you are speaking to the East Tampa CRA?
Speaking of both, but I mean, East Tampa seems to be worse. I mean, I'm just putting it out there, but I can see if East Tampa, if the CEP becomes that non-profit section of Inc. or whatever, have that going. But to me, the CEC and the CEC committees should be operating as one body because they're answering to the CRA. And then if you have the ETRCP, that's totally different. To me, it's just confusing, and it just doesn't make any sense anymore. I don't know what other councilmen feel, but to me, it just doesn't make any sense anymore.
Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, and I think it's confusing too. It was more confusing seeing the presentation just now than it has been dealing with it before. But on East Tampa, twice now at least since I've been here, we've had lots of emails and calls about the election process, and I know you all worked really hard to handle it fairly, but by kind of more separating the two, it would be clearer that one is connected to the CRA and one of them is the public's organization, and then that group can figure out what to do with it. With Ybor, I appreciate you all starting already to make a brand difference. My question would be, what are there specific motions we would need to make today to further separate, to make it clearer? And one of the concerns that has been recurring for many years that I've heard on the Ybor one is the amount of overhead, and so that's a separate issue from this, but we can come back to it as well.
Overhead would not be affected by any change you make with the YCDC Inc. versus the city staff. So overhead is our staff and their location and facility. Any motions for all of you today would be simply if you choose to decide today or next month to actually make a change to your CAC policy. We are moving forward in Ybor, like I said, to continue to do that rebranding, and our whole website will be having an overhaul after the first of the year. So the website is the one change where the non-easy changes won't happen as quickly. They've already been changing their logo. They've already ordered new business cards. So they've been going soup to nuts through their office, looking at everything that needs to have that rebrand.
Councilman Carlson, you finished?
Yes.
Councilman Dingfelder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Michelle. It is complicated and a bit confusing, not your fault. It looks like it's just sort of historically confusing. In Ybor City, and I was speaking to Courtney about this last night, it appears that there might be some purpose in continuing the YCDC in regard to the fact that they have a couple of missions and tasks as a not-for-profit that are independent of the CAC in terms of the paver stones and some of the other community activities that they do and fund separately. And I think perhaps you said they have their own bank account and that sort of thing. In East Tampa, tell me about what is it called, the CRP? Or?
ETCRP.
Yeah, well, the other one, the 5-letter one. Do they similarly have their own nonprofit bank account and activities and that sort of thing that are independent of the CAC and the city's activities?
So first I want to make very clear, because we have been hearing a lot, knowing this was coming up on the agenda, any action by CRA board will not change the YCDC Inc. Any changes that you would make would strictly change the designation of the Inc. board as your CAC. The Inc. board itself, as long as they choose to exist as a nonprofit, that would be up to them how they move forward. But there's no action the CRA board can take to eliminate or dissolve the nonprofit.
They're an independent body.
Yes, so I just want to make clear that we're not looking at getting rid of the Inc. It's just whether they remain as our CAC.
Although we do support them, it sounds like, with staff.
Yes.
So that could be up to, our judgment perhaps, or something like that. But I'm not necessarily advocating that, because it does appear like it doesn't sound very burdensome in the Ybor context. In East Tampa, what I'd like to know is, does that 5-letter organization, does it exist as a not-for-profit?
No, sir.
It does not.
It is strictly a community organization. It is not organized within the state as any kind of nonprofit or any recognized legal entity. It is a community group that came together, that joined, they created bylaws to be a community representative group back in the very early noughts for the East Tampa community, as there were a lot of needs, and finding a voice to be able to talk to the city and the county about their needs. But they do not have any legal organization or standing.
So,
there's no checking account.
Do we control that group at all?
No, they have their own bylaws, and when they have their meetings separate as the partnership meetings, those are their topics. We would only bring CAC issues as updates, community information, but those meetings are focused on getting the word out and being a forum for the neighborhood associations and the community to come together and find out what's going on and be a vehicle for the communication, and also to be a voice to for the associations and the community groups and the residents to come together across a very large CRA.
I mean, if I just dropped in from another planet and looked at that, I would say it's duplicative. But maybe it's not my place to say it's duplicative. How do those two groups, are they two separate groups, or are they the same members? Like in Ybor, that's the same members, right?
So what happens is the partnership itself has a governing board and then there's the large membership of the partnership. Ybor has just the board. So for us at the CRA side, we understand the distinction of the business that happens at each meeting. For someone who dropped in, it may look very duplicitous.
Not duplicitous.
Yeah, sorry, duplicative.
I don't want that going on the record.
Yeah, duplicative. So at CAC, we only have on the agenda CAC items. We only do CAC business, CAC votes at the CAC meeting. When we go to the partnership, we do not bring CAC business except as updates or asked as presentations, but no votes are taken at the partnership that are CAC business. So we do keep that separately as the agenda, but obviously the types of concerns and topics that come up can be at both meetings. The other difference is that the CAC is your committee and it is just that board. When you go to a partnership meeting, it is much more of a group community participation versus the formality we have with the CAC.
So is there any desire or effort, so now I'm not the Martian landing and looking at this, from the grassroots side, is there any desire or effort from the folks that are involved in this on a day-to-day basis to change this or merge this? As the interplanetary visitor, I would say we should merge it, but maybe it's not my place to say that. So what are the folks, in the actual group saying?
I have never, again, I've been in East Tampa since 2007. I have never heard the community group or any of their people in all of these years ask for the partnership to basically meld it into or merged with the CAC. I think the biggest problem that we face is perception. We continuously, whether it's at CRA board, in our community meetings with our own CAC members, with everyone, it is very difficult all the time to have that clear delineation of what is the role with the CAC, what is CAC business, and what is the role of the partnership, what can be asked of the CAC, what can be asked of the partnership. So by having so much overlap and the same faces and the same format and our staff at all of it, it is very confusing to a lot of the community that if they come to a partnership, anyone who's not on the CAC, many of them do not know that they're not, for all intents and purposes, at a CAC meeting. And the public will come to our partnerships meetings and make the same types of requests that they might make at public comment at a CAC. The general public does not understand that distinction.
Okay.
Are you finished?
Yeah, for now.
Councilman.
Again, Ms. Dingfield, it makes
Councilman
no
Goode.
sense. Because what happens is that, because I've sat on that board, it's confusing to everybody. Because now you have a partnership meeting of a committee. And then what I hear is the committee, who I look at supposed to be getting ideas from the community to bring to the CAC, are told that they can't do that. But you have a CAC which has no committees, and only apparently the CAC can only direct this partnership to investigate ideas to bring to them. I've heard that 3 times, so I could be wrong, but I've heard that 3 times. So to me, I think it's confusing. I think you need to separate the two to where if you want to have that partnership be a nonprofit like YCDC, I could go along with that. But the CAC needs to have their own committees so those committees can do the work. And now there's not all this confusion, because it's confusion. Because if you go to a meeting, no one knows what hood, who's what. It's confusing. That matter was in the day in the early stages. But now we are a business now. And we got to move East Tampa in a business-like model to get development, economic development, housing, and these issues. And you can't really do all this when you have dissension with a committee over here, a CAC over there. It's confusing, Michelle. It really is. And I think this body needs to go ahead and make some changes to change that. You can take recommendations back to that board or whatever, but I just think that this board needs to make a decision on having the CAC have their committees, because it's not working.
So the fact that you've heard that 3 times and that there is no such prohibition as you described, but again, because those subcommittees are listed in the partnership bylaws, They are also our subcommittees as a CAC. They are the same subcommittees. There is no prohibition that the CAC has to go through the partnership. There was discussion where I reminded them that the CAC subcommittees, or we'll just refer to them as the subcommittees, are not standalone committees on their own that are out there just doing their own thing. They should be getting their marching orders from the CAC that says this is what we want to work on, and then the CAC refers that to the subcommittee for that detailed busy work that cannot all be handled at a CAC. Should the subcommittee have ideas as they're meeting and they think that they are warranted and needed, I mentioned that they needed to come to the CAC to confirm that that is the direction that the CAC would like them to go. But the CAC does not have to go through the partnership. But again, we have two different documents, two different organizations with the same names, the same subcommittees, the same people. And yes, it's a lot of confusion. And as it has been 4 meetings now in 12 or 13 months with all of you to keep working through this, every time we have changeover, which is at every year in our CACs, there is a lot of effort to constantly explain that, and it also creates frustration. How it gets resolved, though, we've been doing it for years, but if there is a better way, we will certainly help work through that and make that happen.
Mr. Miranda?
You good?
Yeah, I'm good right now. Yeah.
Chairman,
Councilman Miranda.
Just sitting here and observing what the conversation is, I believe that one of the members who's been discussing this should get with the CRA attorney and come up with, ask the attorney to come up with a resolution or solution to what we see, maybe have a consolidation or whatever. And that's the only way I think that would be equitable for the CRA to understand what absorbing is.
If I may, I know Andrea's here, but because Morris and I have been working on this through all of these, and Andrea can certainly comment on this also, but from Morris's perspective, which direction you go on this is not a legal one, but a policy one. So if you want to change it, here is the process. If you keep it, there is no legal issue for keeping it the way it is. It's just that our legal side is involved to help make sure that the process for any change is understood and followed.
Before I go that far, I see the YCDC and all that. I see there's 2 different processes, but does it work good for one and not the other? Or does it work good for both, or is it both of them needing attention? So if it's working good for both, there's no need. If it's not working good for one of them, then there is need, and that's what I'm bringing up. I don't really know. We need direction from yourself or others.
Mr. Chairman?
I'm not trying to throw it back at you, I'm just saying what it is.
Councilman Good.
I'm going to make the suggestion, is that you take it back to the CEC board. Have a discussion with them of the confusion. See what their recommendations are. Then you bring that back, and then this board can make a final decision on what direction we need to go. That's fair to the community, that's fair, because right now, it's dissension because no one knows a direction. We may know, and you may know, but the general public, they're lost, and you've got to have a pathway with folks to get things moving, and that's been the problem in East Tampa. Confusion and division. We have to have a clear body to clearly move in a direction to make things move. We haven't had that. Now I see you have good people on these boards now who actually know about what to do. So they're confused as well. So I think we got to home it in and get a solid foundation to really move and get the job done.
I'd like to second.
One second, Councilman Dingfelder. Can you clarify that's the East Tampa CAC?
East Tampa.
Thank you very much. Councilman Dingfelder.
Yeah, I'd like to second that motion with perhaps a friendly suggestion to strengthen it, at least potentially strengthen it. What if our motion was a little bit stronger and said something along the lines of, would the 2 organizations, or specifically the CRP, consider just a total merger the elimination of the CRP part of it. You know, and then discuss the pros and cons. And I guess both organizations would, I guess, have to do that separately. I don't know. They can figure that out. But perhaps the motion would be that it's council's leaning that they just merge and we move on just with one clear organization. And Mr. Carlson often points out the fact that when it comes to messaging and identity and that sort of thing, it would, and Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, but it would be much cleaner just to have, you know, one group that's identifiable, you know, as the quote arm of the city for CRA purposes. Anyway.
Hang on. Are you accepting?
No, I was telling you want to.
Right, I saw him.
Yeah.
But we have to get first to the
Yeah,
friendly,
accept
do you accept the friendly amendment?
Yeah.
Now, if I'm correct, we have to vote on accepting the amendment before we, and that is the vote on the motion. Ms. Zellman?
Want a discussion on the motion, Bill?
Are you going to discuss the motion? But we have a motion here on the floor. And actually, it hasn't been seconded. It was a friendly amendment.
With a second.
With a second. So we have a motion on the floor, friendly amendment. We have to vote on the friendly amendment, which will take place of the motion, correct, Ms. Zellman?
That's my understanding as well, yes.
Thank you. We will take a vote on the friendly amendment. All in favor? Let's have a roll call vote, please.
Dingfelder,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Vieira,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Goods,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
and Cedro.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
So, Ms. Michelle, did you understand the motion? And okay, fantastic. Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, Mr. Dingfelder mentioned confusion. Don't forget, there's also confusion about what a CAC is. You remember 2 years ago, folks came to us and said, like, not talking about these in particular, but in other districts, this is our money, we can spend this money the way we want. And sitting as a CRA board, you know, we have to look at the fact that the rest of the city subsidizes these, and we have to look very carefully about how the money is used. And we take advice from the CACs, but we have to make overall judgments about whether it's following the law and also whether it's following kind of the systemic needs of the city. Like we push for affordable housing, which is something that crosses all of them, even though it had not popped up necessarily in all the strategic action plans. So the confusion about CAC ties into this because it's not just names, it's what the role is. If I had to make a motion today, well, the motion that I would have made is to ask for us to have maybe a 12-month plan to extract the CACs from those two nonprofits and have them run and act like other CACs, the same as they're run in other parts. And then the CACs or the CRA board can have relationships with many different nonprofits, and then those two groups can decide what they want to do in relation to that, but we're not just tied to one nonprofit either. The voting thing is a real problem, and I think that eventually each of those two organizations have to make their own decision about how they pick board members, and having the CRA, which is city staff, involved in those elections is risky for a lot of reasons for us.
Any other comments or questions? I mean no offense to any CRA board member, but having been a member of a CAC, you find a lot of things out and you find out how these things operate. And I've always said it's the purest form of democracy, where the community comes to committees, committees then go to the CRA board, which then comes to us. And having been part of the Ybor City CAC 1 and Ybor City CAC 2, I have found that all of the CACs benefit the community in which they are in. Do we need to discuss the YCDC? Thank you, Ms. Van Loan.
Okay, moving on to item number 4. If we can bring, thank you. Over the summer, West Tampa adopted several new business physical improvement grants for their restaurants, for the Vanilla Shell to get ready for tenants, for historical rehab, and adding on to the second floor, doing the conversion into upstairs residential from retail. And Channel District is now also embarking and ready to come to you in January with a whole new set of similar types of programs. East Tampa is developing a lot of programs, and as we work through all this, Morris and I have been noticing a lot of differences and customization, and we don't have a clear direction from the CRA board as to how you want the approval process for our grant programs to be. And so our CRA attorney and I, Mr. Massey, are coming to you to start that dialogue to say that we are recommending that we have a standard approval process for our CRA grants, and that we are looking to you to have that dialogue and to work towards some decision points so that we could establish that. So what we're looking at is creating, again, a standard approval process for you as an agency. So before we get too far down the road with too many programs that have all these slight differences, that we want to make sure we're ahead of that and we can be in conformance with that. So we have some grant programs that include CRA board approval, such as your facade grant. In EBOR, they have the infrastructure and the amenity grant, and every so often we have some standalone grants, like we have later today for the CDC of Tampa. Then we have some grant programs that are approved administratively. These tend to be the smaller grant programs. Our tree trimming grant, Drew Park has the fence grant, and then 3 of our CRAs have the smaller sponsorship grants for their event. What we would like to propose is, both as we operate now and moving forward, we would continue to take all grant program guides where we set out the full parameters, eligibility, all the forms, the application forms, to the CRA board for approval. They are all developed through our CACs. All programs would state the purpose of the grant and also indicate alignment with the respective community redevelopment plan, so that it is clear how all of these various programs are furthering our community redevelopment plans within our respective CRAs. And that, again, upfront CRA board would have all that information. We would have all grants to have clear eligibility criteria and clearly defined parameters of action as far as the improvements that could be funded with those grant programs. We would include defined checklists for each of the grant programs. So similar to our facade grant, we go through a checklist that says, is the applicant matching the property owner? Do they have the property insurance? Do they have? So we have these detailed checklists both for evaluating our grant programs, and then on the backside, in establishing that all the documentation and paperwork has been submitted and is complete so that we may reimburse for that grant. Some of those things, as you see there, property owner, taxes, we check code violations, we check to see if their contractors are licensed, we make sure they have quotes for all the work, we have itemized budget, and then again, before they can be reimbursed, we have detailed receipts, lien waivers as applicable, and the applicant signs a disbursement request form verifying and affirming that they have in fact spent those dollars and are now eligible to be reimbursed for that work. What we're looking at for consideration for this board is, should all grants go to the CRA board for approval, or should some be delegated through the CRA director and CRA manager? And if so, dollar thresholds usually make the most sense. and deciding if we do go that way and have a two-tier of grants, deciding what that threshold would be. Again, currently administratively, we do not internally approve any grant without CRA board approval that goes over $10,000, but we only have a few grant programs right now. So again, we want to make sure that we are in alignment and having these discussions with all of you. Currently, we have the facade grant program that is at $50,000. The EBOR grants are at $50,000, and the new grants that you just approved with West Tampa, they are at some are $35,000, $50,000, and up to $75,000. Some of the other questions we would want to ask that have been discussed, again, at the CAC level that we would like to have and recommend having at the agency level. With the facade grant and some of the others, we have more as a practice in our grant said that each applicant cannot participate in more than one grant within that specific grant during a 12-month period. When West Tampa started developing multiples, we could see how a restaurant expansion grant could be partnered with a facade grant. And so in West Tampa, they said, yes, you could stack them, but we want a maximum that in that 12-month period, that applicant cannot receive more than $75,000. So these are the kind of discussions that Mr. Massey and I felt like should be at a much more policy-driven level than individually at our CACs. And then one of the final big issues that we wrestle with, and it became an issue that Councilman Dingfelter championed, we moved away from a lien and recording a lien, and we went to covenants and restrictions that are recorded. For the facade grant, they're at 5 years. For the two existing small EBOR grants, small as we only do so many, they have a 5-year, but the new West Tampa grants for some of the smaller, where they cap out at less than $50,000, they had them for 3 years, and the larger grants at 5 years. We also currently approve those covenants and restrictions through the grant resolution. That has been included every time. So one of the questions Mr. Massey had is, does the CRA board want to be able to approve that through resolution, or do we just approve the form and then we handle that administratively? And do you want to continue the covenants and restrictions? And if so, under what conditions? All grants, only grants that come before the CRA board, or only grants over a certain amount? And then again, what should the duration of that recorded covenants and restrictions be? So those are some of the issues that, again, we're not looking for answers today unless you have set ideas. We would like to start this discussion. We can continue it into January. We don't have a long agenda. We can certainly talk about as much as you like for any of your ideas or take your feedback today. But we definitely are recommending that we feel we need a CRA board policy on this issue.
Councilman Carlson, I'm sorry, Councilman Carlson. Councilman Miranda.
Well, you were close. Let me say this. It certainly is a lot to gather today on all the things. Some are for 3 years, some are for 5 years, some are 5,000, some are 50,000, some as high as 75,000 in certain areas. And to standardize all of that, and I think you need a special meeting just on that system alone. For me to vote today and say I'd just be shooting crap like playing it in Las Vegas roulette. We have to understand the process, and we understand the process. What we don't is too much in my judgment anyway today, to make judgment on all the different types of grants. And 75,000, I would assume one is 75, one is 50, whatever, but it's 5,000 is still money. That when they apply for the grant, they have already a sheet of costs that are certified by whoever they talk to that's going to do some of the work, an estimate. And then those estimates are taken and put in to make sure that it meets the criteria of whatever they want to do. And then at that time comes the money. Is it 5,000 or 50,000? And therefore, somebody's going to have to make that decision. At the end, it's going to come to us to verify and approve the final granting of those items. So today, and I don't mind doing that, but today to do that, it's going to take item by item, because she talked for about 15 straight minutes And rightly so, she did an excellent job in making the presentation. And based on those facts, I have to take a step backward and say, whoa, it's a lot of information to pass just today without having the knowledge of all the information coming before us. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, I agree with Councilman Miranda on that point about taking our time to go through this. Philosophically, I would prefer that staff approve grants below a certain amount. As you all know, I'm against facade grant funding except for historic preservation. And the reason is that I think that the money in these CRAs, because they're subsidized by the rest of the city, we need to hold that money to a different standard. We've got roads that are falling apart throughout the city. We've got parks falling apart throughout the city. We've got other flooding and other problems. And every day we're getting lots and lots of emails and calls from constituents who are angry because the basic services of the city are not holding up because we don't have the funding. And so when people who are mad about potholes hear that we're paying for a facade grant, they get upset about it. And so what I would rather do is not just set the limits and parameters like for individual grants. I think you said 50,000 or 10,000, whatever those rules are. And as Councilman Miranda said, we need to discuss it more at another time. But for facade grants in particular, I think we need to have a limit per CRA district by either the number of them. I think you said there's a limit of number in Ybor, or an overall dollar limit. And I think it's really important to have a dollar limit. If we're going to do some of them, let's not make this the biggest part of our program and have unlimited applications for it. Let's say it is one tool, and let's decide once a year to spend a certain amount of money on it, and then the staff can figure out how to do that within that. And then let's focus on the other bigger issues to really help transform these communities. Thank you.
Councilman Goods.
I see a bottleneck here because it's going to get bogged down. You talk about approvals. What's the process if somebody doesn't agree with staff's denial? It's going to be a bottleneck. How are they all going to get channeled through? To me, that means more staff. I hear Mr. Carlson about the facade grants, but I'm going to tell you, in some of these CRAs that are really marginalized, that helps the facade, the beautification stage of the community, the business. Some of them may not can get these type of loans, or it's another avenue to be able to fix the business up to make that community look a little bit better. CAP possibly could be, but when you look at some of the CRA zones, some are better than others. We know on the east side we're not better yet. We haven't arrived yet. We're still trying to arrive. That's why I talk about the strategic action plan, making sure when it's done we got somebody ready to move. We can't sit it on the shelf. There's so many programs in East Tampa that those boards have asked for approval and have granted, but yet nobody will work them. They sit on the shelf. Maybe the small hanging fruit, but some of the bigger projects, they've set on the shelf. But I just think this process here, Mr. Miranda said, needs more thought process, because what I see is a bottleneck. I'm going to be honest with you. And then again, there's no denial process. Who they go to if you disagree. It may be something that's valid. You may say there may be a certain situation that this board says, well, the community is crying about that. Maybe we need to do something. So I just think we need more discussion on it, Michelle.
Good. Councilman Dingfelder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, Michelle, and I can see why you and Morris and whoever else is working on this would want to standardize this. And then that way, you're not a huge department, but I think standardization for this type of thing would generally be a good idea. However, as long as it doesn't sort of create additional, as Councilman Good said, bottlenecks or problems, or make it seem, for a small little $2,500 tree grant, tree trimming grant, does it become too bureaucratic in terms of the requirements? So that would be one of my concerns, is for simple, small grants like that, which you know, just to make sure that we're not becoming too bureaucratic in those processes. I guess what I would suggest is probably brief all of us over the next month or two in terms of pros and cons and all of the 10 issues that you raised on that slideshow, and then bring it back in with like more of a decision matrix. You know, here's the 10 issues, here's your choice, and then we can march through it. And that would be consistent, I think, with Mr. Miranda's concerns, because you know there are a lot of moving parts there, and but I'm confident you can do that. So that's
Yes.
my suggestion.
Again, we came to start the conversation. We were not hoping for any kind of policy to come out. We would, after we had that kind of discussion with you, then come back with a formal policy that you adopt like your other policies. So we were not trying to establish anything today.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions? Ms. Van Loan, and I tend to agree with Councilman Dingfelder and Councilman Miranda that this is going to take time. I don't want to push it out too far, but I want to be able to have a discussion with you and basically other CRA members, excuse me, CAC members, and find out their thoughts. Can we have this report brought back to us on February 10th? Is that too long in your opinion?
Oh, no, well, you meet January 20th, so the difference between January 20th and February 10th is not that great. So either one at your pleasure.
If this board would allow me, I'd like to say February 10th.
I'll move that motion since you're the chair.
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Goods. Roll call vote.
Carlson.
Yes.
Goods.
Yes.
Miranda.
Yes.
Vieira. Maniscalco.
Yes.
Dingfelder.
Yes.
And Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
She's run away.
I have that effect.
Mr. Chair?
I'm glad you recognize it.
Don't worry, I have that effect. Ms. Van Loan.
Mr. Chair, before you move on, I apologize. I want to go back to agenda item number 4.
Before you do,
voted.
Andrea, before you do, I just had one follow-up question
Oh,
on
sorry.
that last one, Mr. Chairman. And I forgot to mention this when I was chatting about it. Michelle, what I was thinking about was instead of staff, leaving it for staff approval, maybe we could do a kind of like a consent agenda for simple things like the facade grants. So instead of voting on them individually, just bundle them up in a consent agenda like we do at City Council. So that's just an idea. Throw it out there. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
And if I may, going back to item number 3, not 4, I know you had the vote on the motion to amend Mr. Goods' motion. I just wanted to ask the clerk, was there a vote on the amended motion? I just can't recall.
No, it was just one motion.
I believe you have
Within-
to just formally vote on the amended motion just to.
That's all I have. Goods
Make
made
the
the
record
motion
clear.
and Dingfelder seconded, and he also included his amendment.
Okay,
No.
so you voted on the motion as amended.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
We good, Ms. Elm?
If the clerk is okay, then.
If I may, Ms. Van Loan, I would like to see, outside of each and every one of these grants that we have given, a big sign within code that says your CRA, your CAC dollars at work for you.
Good idea, Mr. Citro.
That way,
Good idea.
when we have more grants available, people will say, it worked for that house. It worked for that building. Maybe I can apply for one of these grants. That's what I would like to see.
Good idea, Mr. Citro.
Thank you, Ms. Van Loan.
I am going to request one qualifier that the tree trimming grant with hundreds would not be included in that.
Well,
because-
even that would be like a little campaign sign outside.
We would definitely get overwhelmed, yes. But
But
I don't think that anyone at this point in East Tampa is unaware that we have a tree trimming grant. We're definitely getting a lot of press and notoriety on that one, but for all the others, we can certainly do that.
I thank you, Ms. Van Loan. Thank you, board members. Councilman Vieira.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I just want to salute you for the idea. That's a great idea. Because, you know, a lot of people don't know that certain improvements are from one particular municipality or government body, and it's so important for, you know, there's so many attacks on CRAs that come from Tallahassee, et cetera. And you know, I believe in the idea of CRAs, which is the idea that you take a disadvantaged area suffering from blight and need of development, you pull the resources together, you pull the future tax revenue together, dedicate it to that area to spur economic development, fight blight, et cetera. I believe in that, and that's something that folks can see those projects from the CRA, so that's a great idea.
And I want to give a shout out to Mr. Jesus Nino, as he's been doing alley cleanup. We have had signs that say this is your CRA dollars funding and sponsoring these cleanups. Yes, so we are moving towards that. But yes, we appreciate the support that we now can go back to everyone and say, yes, this is how we are going to handle it.
I always told you an alley takes precedence over a building.
And I'm joking. Thank Mr. Ninos, because I've already gotten a few calls saying, hey, is my alley eligible for this? Okay, Ms. Van Loan, are we traveling on now?
Yes, for item number 5, we have a facade grant for just under $6,000. This is for Drew Park at 4412 West Osborne. This property had a grant last year. This is a second phase. It's a small grant. They had to accomplish a certain amount of work before they could do this last bit of work. And so this is their phase 2 to finalize their project.
So move.
Second.
I have a motion made by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Goods. Roll call.
Maniscalco? Yes. Goods?
Yes.
Vieira? Miranda?
Yes.
Goods?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
And Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Did Councilman Goods get 2 votes on that?
Call me yesterday.
That was an
You got it right?
Sorry, you don't love me anymore.
I thought she needed me or something. Do it again.
Dingfelder?
Maybe. Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Item number 6 is when we talk about every so often we have standalone grants. The CDC of Tampa and East Tampa is building for affordable housing, so in the true definition of low-income housing on a street that does not have any water or sewer. It will cost them just under $190,000 to just for the sewer, and they have come to us to ask us to help subsidize and pay for that connection out in the public right-of-way as part of the infrastructure improvements so that they can keep those properties then within that affordable rate. And so they are asking for a grant not to exceed $190,000, which would be for those 4 lots that are adjacent to each other. It is a reimbursement grant, so the work has to be done. It is only for the construction that happens in the right-of-way, and we will also document, and they have to show us that these houses are being conveyed and sold to low-income families.
Brilliant, brilliant.
I read that, and I agree with that, because if not, those 4 houses would never be built. Nothing would be built there unless it was by private money.
Right.
So I understand that, and although I may not like it personally, it's the only way of solving the problem to build 4 houses. There's no other way around it. Somebody's got to pay. So it's going to be the CRA. I move that one also.
We have a motion made by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. Roll call vote, please.
Dingfelder?
Yes.
Maniscalco? Yes. Vieira? Yes. Miranda?
Yes.
Goods?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
And Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Item number 7 is the Tampa Heights Riverfront Community Redevelopment Plan Amendment. It went to Planning Commission this past Monday. The Planning Commission has ruled that it is consistent with our comprehensive plan, and so now this resolution would be the action by CRA Board to refer the amendment to City Council for public hearing and adoption.
Second.
Got a motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Carlson. Roll call vote.
Carlson?
Yes.
Goods?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
Vieira? Yes. Maniscalco?
Yes.
Dingfelder?
Yes.
And Citro?
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Our last item, number 9, is a request from the Center for Economic Development in East Tampa. They have been putting together community cleanups to help low-income households with tree trimming and trash and cleanup that the individual or the property owner isn't able to handle on their own. They have 6 houses in East Tampa scheduled for this Saturday, and they came to the CAC requesting funds. The CAC has recommended up to $10,000 for the grant, again reimbursable. In your packet as your backup, you received their PowerPoint presentation at request that detailed that the costs go to the supplies for the volunteers, and then also some of the work that would require specialists or that would be too dangerous for general volunteers, such as some of the tree trimming. And again, those would be reimbursed based on the work performed and the receipts.
Any comments or questions? Councilman Goods.
You know, you always want to praise people when they're doing good work, and this young lady saw how we kind of backlogged ourselves and we're moving kind of slow, and she took the lead to try to do some things that on her own, because seeing the need. Everyone knows the need, so I applaud her for her efforts, and hopefully we will get on track and get our engine running so she doesn't have to do this.
And Mr. Good, I appreciate that. And also, when you look at these 8 houses and you look at the cost, yeah, some are 1,000, some are 1,500, some are 1,100, so forth and so on. And if you just go back and say, well, that's a lot of money to spend on one house. But what happens is we don't realize that that house hasn't been touched maybe in 2 or 3 years. And if you go back and look, just your lawn service on a normal house is $70, $80, $100 a month, and you add it up, it comes out to more than that. I'm not saying that's the case, but I guarantee you that is the case because I haven't seen it. But when you know, the eyes of the beholder tells you what the neighborhood is like when you drive through. And if you drive through and you see what? Things thrown all over the place, lawns that haven't been cut, bushes that haven't been watered, and all that kind of stuff are taken out and redone. And you got to have the volunteers. You got to serve them lunch, or you got to have water for them. If not, it's not going to work.
I think a lot of these are elderly people's houses
That's
too.
what I'm saying. So I move that.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. Roll call vote, please.
Vieira. Miranda.
Yes.
Goods.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Maniscalco. Dingfelder. And Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
So with that, staff would like to wish very happy holidays to our CRA board. We wish you all well. Thank you for those of you who attended some of our festivities last night or the Downtown Partnership. And as you make your way through the next couple of weeks to all of our community activities, we had a wonderful tree lighting out at Carrington Pond Monday night. That was well attended. And again, thank you all for coming. We had a great turnout and representation, and we've got a lot of things to look forward to as we move into 2022. So thank you.
Ms. Van Loan, thank you for all of your help today. And to you, from me, and from this this board here, Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year. And to all the CRA staff and all the CAC board members and all the CAC staff, a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and a prosperous New Year.
Thank you, Santa.
No, me and Santa had a fight. Okay,
And he won.
Me and Santa had a fight. Where's my '68 Camaro? Okay, let's go to information and reports. Let's start with Councilman Miranda.
None, sir.
Councilman Goods. Councilman Dingfelder.
Quick question. Michelle, I think it's been, I don't know how long, probably 18 months or so since we purchased the downtown Army-Navy parcel, and maybe a year, I don't know. Anyway, and I'm just wondering for an update on that. You don't have to do it right now, but perhaps next month. You know, are we issuing an RFP? What's the delay, et cetera, et cetera?
So, yeah, I can do a very quick, easy update. And Rob Brosner was, we talk about this several times a week, including last night. We are going to be issuing an RFP. we needed to look at, there are a lot of properties through that corridor. We also have transportation initiatives coming through that corridor, and we want to all be in alignment with our timing so that we can truly look at developing the best development we can get for affordable housing and for transportation, and making sure that we can time the development with the type of transportation that low-income folks and residences and families that would live there and need to access their employment centers would have all at once. In the coming year of 2022, we will be working with the Downtown CAC to be holding the workshops, just like we did in West Tampa, to develop the parameters for what should be in the RFP and what we are looking for. So yes, that will very much be an RFP before probably we get to next October, but we are starting that process.
Okay, so unlike some projects that are more city-ish, perhaps like Rome Yards, for example, that was a city project, city just did its own RFP, that sort of thing. In this case, you know, this body, this board, you know, used the CRA money to buy it, and so I think we need to be much more intimately involved with the RFP process, in addition, of course, to the Downtown CAC, but specifically with us. So, so anyway, I think you get my point. Just do it early and do it often, because we don't want to be looking at an RFP that's already done and just looking to be rubber stamping that.
Even for West Tampa on the Rome Yard, we had 4 or 5 at least community meetings where at that time Vanessa McCleary with HCD was spearheading that initiative, where she came month after month to talk with the West Tampa, get their feedback, their expectations, what they wanted. She would come back and say, okay, here's what we heard, here's what we're putting in, and that constant feedback loop. And then it was a city process once they were ready. And yes, there is going to be a lot that goes into once we are ready. It is not just a single transaction that we would be doing, and so we will be coming to you at various stages to update you where we are, what are the next steps.
Okay, but I think more than just update, I think we want to give our very valuable input as a body and as a board into that RFP and into that process. And in regard to timing, I mean, I know that's complicated and I know there's a lot of moving parts over there, but in regard to timing, the market is so hot right now, and there's so many potential partners out there that I'd hate to miss this window. So I would just urge you and Rob Rosner sooner than later.
There's a few steps we have to finalize that I'm happy to provide you information and get your feedback on behind the scenes due to the legal nature of them.
Yeah, sure. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilman Carlson.
Nothing, thank you.
Councilman Maniscalco. Councilman Vieira.
Just really quick, I need to clarify a motion. I made a motion for CRA staff to report on March 10th of 2022 regarding funding in the CRA areas. I termed it a civil rights trail. It actually should be an African American and art heritage trail. So I'd like to amend my motion if I may.
Motion by Councilman Vieira, seconded by Councilman Goods. Roll call.
Goods?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
Vieira?
Yes.
Maniscalco? Dingfelder?
Yes.
And Cedro.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
And then I would, if I may, in April of 2022, to have a report by CRA staff on the parks, the city parks that are within the CRAs. I've talked a lot about getting all of our parks disability accessible for children with disabilities, et cetera, for making sure that there's playground equipment there that is disability friendly, and seeing what CRAs can do to help complete that process for parks within there, just on the feasibility of it, if I may, in April of 2022 CRA meeting.
A motion made by Councilman Vieira, seconded by Councilman Miranda. Roll call vote.
Miranda?
Yes.
Vieira?
Yes.
Goods?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Maniscalco?
Yes.
Dingfelder?
Yes.
And Cedro.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Without objection?
Second.
There you go. All in favor? We are adjourned. See you.
Afraid, plans that we made, walking in a winter wonderland.